The dreams are big, that's for sure.
All right, it's December 21st, 2022, and this is our monthly meeting of the Parsonsfield Planning Board. And we are going to call the meeting to order. And we need to review correspondence under item 2.
So you guys received the updated deed for the application for tonight.
Okay.
And the map that you have. And then, like I just told you, Jesse won't be here tonight, and that's about it. It's been
So
a quiet month.
correspondence, I would suggest we just move that down to our new business.
What's that?
The correspondence is all related to the matter we're hearing. Said the correspondence is all related to the matter that we're hearing tonight. So we'll just, if everyone is okay with that, we'll accept the correspondence and move forward. Reviewing minutes of November 16th. Which I keep moving everything around because I'm so organized today.
Not for November.
Okay, section 1 looks fine to me. Does anybody see anything there?
I looked over it, I didn't see any issues with it.
Yay.
I'm going to be accepting minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? So moved. And that brings us to old business. Item A is considered failure to request documentation of information verbally provided by applicant at the August meeting. Would you like to take the floor, sir?
Yeah, so let me make clear, this isn't throwing mud at anybody
Yeah.
on the board or off the board. It's an observation of something that happened. Alan, I think you've already got this by now.
Yes, I have a copy of it.
So, and it's not an attempt to go back and revisit this either, but after the meeting in which we last considered the Allard application, one of the citizens provided me with this, which is, I can give it to you, basically a prior application for the same property by the same person. Now, at the last meeting, one of the issues was the amount of pavement, impervious surface at that location, and it was accepted without any documentation that it was 60% or less. This previous thing dated, what was it dated? Prior to anybody here sitting on the board, April 2016, and it's for Village Variety, and it shows that the surface cover was at that time 81%, and that this application from 2016 would reduce it to 71%. Okay, we've been kicking around the question of retroactive correction. I'm not even bringing up that. What I want to bring up is our need to review prior applications as part of our process. And that's probably not something we can build into the mechanics tonight. I don't want to take a lot of time about it, but I do want to kick it open. Also that, we have to have a standard of proof for everybody that comes here. It can't be word of mouth, applicant's assurance, or the assurance of the CEO, even though all of them may be correct. If we're going to deal with this kind of stuff, we need to deal with it in a more formal manner. So what I'm suggesting is maybe we have a workshop and look at building into the site plan review process a little bit of research on prior applications to see what they specify. It may not be necessary in every case. It wouldn't be necessary in the case of a new applicant coming forward because it wouldn't apply. But in cases where there are 3 or 4 applications piggybacked onto each other, which would get several, I think it would be advisable.
Desiree, do you think we should contact the MMA and ask them if that we are allowed to consider prior applications on properties with a new application for new use? Or if that's like a closed chapter?
I don't see why you couldn't. I mean, you're changing the use of that property in some way or another, so I definitely think Andy is,
I'm not disputing it, I just
Right.
want to make sure that we're not going to butt heads with people.
yeah.
Right?
Right. I mean, I don't think,
I don't want to be like, obviously, this isn't that quite that case, like double jeopardy where we're making two decisions on the same issue. Or overruling a prior issue. I think a workshop is great, so we don't.
Yeah, maybe with that information, I mean, I'm just looking at this as an informational thing.
Did I mishear, just so I can remember for that meeting, I thought we discussed the amount of pavement there,
We did.
and someone give us an inaccurate number?
It may be an accurate number.
Or somebody gave us a number, right?
It was a question we asked to the CEO, excuse me, point of interest.
Yes.
The question we asked to the CEO, and I remember, because I think I was the one that asked it, does this exceed the percentage for that site that's in our book for impervious
Yeah.
area? And the answer was, no. I do recall.
Okay.
I think you'll find that in the record, because I asked that question.
That's absolutely correct, Alan.
So the reason I didn't follow up on it anymore myself was I took the code enforcement officer's word that what he had told us at our meeting,
Right.
that this did not exceed the impervious percent.
Yeah, I don't think that it would hurt to have that as a question in our application form that says if there've been prior applications for the specific site.
But by this document,
Copies.
it did exceed the impervious percentage when they built the first part of property, of buildings on that site.
Does that-
So they were well over already the
I
60%.
haven't seen that document, does that include the redemption?
It's over the 60%, well over. So it's up, and what I don't like when I read this, the planning board decided to waive the 60% maximum. We don't waive things like that, the planning board don't. That's,
ZBA.
huh? Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You have to go to the zoning board of appeals, get a waiver to a document or to something's in our board that we have to follow as a planning board member. We can't, so the prior members on that, if you read back who signed off on this from the planning board, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 of them signed off on it. And what they were taking on their own back was they decided to give the variance. That's not legal.
Well, this is for the convenience store, this is not for the
That's for the first.
redemption center, so there was
Yes.
more work done after.
Yes,
Yeah, it may be that Jesse is correct and it's 60% or less based on some kind of sleight of hand where you combine the house lot as well. But, you know, I mean, we kind of have to be a little bit vigilant.
I agree.
And I'm not suggesting that we do double jeopardy, I'm just suggesting for informational purposes. What happened before, so we can say, okay, you come in here, this was 80%, reduced to 71%. How are you getting 60%? Let's see a drawing, or let's have a measurement that we do ourselves with a wheel, you know?
I 100% agree.
I mean, Jesse is good and knows what he's doing, but,
No, but that's a good catch.
you know, we can't put the burden of proof on them.
Agreed. Do we want to consider the procedure discussion and move forward for the workshop? We can talk about that at the end.
you might want to keep, we need to give the chair a copy of this to
Yeah.
everybody else. But this was personally given to me by a person in the community, that lives in the community, that
I'm
had
interested to
concerns.
see that end as well as the
Huh?
redemption center application.
Huh?
I'm interested in reading that and seeing the redemption center application also.
I'll give it to you.
I have a feeling
I'll make copies.
we're gonna find that that involves the house property, and I feel like Jesse said that when we were at the site.
We were.
Right,
Yeah,
I feel
it's all-
like that was brought up at the site, that was
Yeah.
because of the immersion of all the lots.
Because I asked the CEO that question.
Right. Well, I don't disagree with any of these whatsoever. So with that in mind, we're gonna discuss at the end about a workshop, so let's consider that procedure discussion as well. Is that good with you?
Yeah, when?
Let's discuss that for the
When
workshop.
we get down there.
Yep.
Okay.
And then that would move us to new business. So everyone received a copy of this.
Before we move forward, just because I think that this application is going to take a while,
Yep.
I would like to make a motion to promote Roger to the voting member for this application.
Seconds? All in favor? Okay. That's new.
Just don't want us to get here and have two in Roger and not be able to do anything.
That's right.
Don't want to have anything that's going to slow it down. All right, so I can roll.
All right, so this is the site plan review for Andrew Diane O'Neill, land lot map R03, lot 001, proposed RV campground, adult or 50 plus to be determined.
Yeah.
Which I don't think has a bearing on the application exactly anyway. Everything I touch, Andy's hiding from me. No, he's right there. All right. I need some clarification just from you, just moving forward on your site map. Is this green space that I'm seeing, I'm assuming these 44 sites is the pale and then the one in green, is that green space?
That's just green space.
Okay.
It is, sir.
And where would they park?
I forgot mine.
You're fine. Is this site including parking for them as well as?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Each one of these sites is anywhere from 2,400 to 3,500 square feet.
And on the red marked sites, what's the little bump out?
So here's where we kind of split with our surveyor.
Yep.
So this is what he gave us after a year.
Okay,
These green sites are supposed to be pull-through sites,
okay,
and the red ones are supposed to be back-end sites.
all right.
But although we do want some pull-through sites, we don't want them all to be because there's too many roads. And we want more trees than roads. So that's why we're oversizing the sites. And
Did he give you a dimension of what these site sizes are?
These are around 2,400,
The,
the red ones. And the pull-through ones are 3,500. I'm sorry, I forgot my map, so
You
I
are
have to look on with
completely
you.
I know that you probably realize this, we're just diving into this. So
Yeah,
I want to ask
we-
as many questions to save us from repeating them later.
Well, we are in the process of switching surveyors just because he's taken so long, and
get
this
it.
is all he gave us. And once we engage the Saco River Corridor Commission, and we figure out everything that they need first, but we wanted to just come and introduce you and give you an idea of what we're thinking of and find out the viability, because the amount of engineering on this is going to be $200,000. So before we dive into that, we wanted to talk with you guys, and we want to get on the agenda for Saco River, just so that we are aware that whether it's feasible or not before we dump all that money into it.
And so he gave this is supposedly to scale?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm just looking at your
What'd you-
buildings
I didn't
versus
hear
your
that.
RV park sites.
Yeah.
The 87,340 square feet in the bottom right-hand corner, is that setback zone? or is there a
That's for
building
our
there?
um, house.
That's for your private residence? And will that be part of it?
Yes, it will be at some point. We just haven't gotten the plans
No problem. I'm just-
to that point. We cut off, I think, 15 or 20 acres
Yeah.
for us. And because there was an approved house lot in there that was close enough to the river that we figured we might as well take the furthest area that's closest to the river.
It's already set
Yeah,
up.
and you've got 1,800 square foot space for your golf carts. Are these going to be electric or battery? Electric, I'm sorry, or gasoline?
They're going to be whatever the campers bring, side-by-sides,
So they're
golf
privately
carts.
owned?
Yes, yeah.
So they may not even be golf carts?
No.
You're not going to fuel on site? Okay.
Are you looking at transient campers or people who leave their, big campers there for years on end?
Ideally, we'd like seasonal. I mean, ideally.
Year after
Right,
year.
year after year, or at least for the full season, 6 months.
The other question, I just want to make sure, I think I know where this piece of property is. Is it right over, when you go over the bridge from Porter?
Yeah,
It's
it's-
on the right, there's a kick-in going down there?
Yeah, it starts at the covered bridge, and it goes under the traffic bridge, and then it goes all the way around the corner as you follow the river down. to the back corner. So it's,
So most of it is below the bridge on going downstream? Or is it
it's going upstream.
going upstream?
Yeah, so from the covered bridge, that little triangle there
Yeah.
between that's part of the property, but you can't do anything with that, obviously. And then it goes under the traffic bridge and then goes all the way up and around the corner. It's about 1,500
Kind of parallels, it would be across the river from Cross Street?
That I don't know. I'm not as familiar with this area.
RV staging is for just when they're checking in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry if it's,
No.
Dump station would be for dumpsters, dump ground?
Yep, and/or septic. I can't remember. No, that'll be with the big septic.
Because I see bass, but I'm just trying to find the septic on here.
Dump station is usually septic.
Yeah. But just so you know, the original plan for this was that the septic was going to go underneath this
Recreation area.
recreation. And if we need a second one, we have a second recreation area now. Where nothing's going to be built, it's just going to be field. So we can dump septics underneath, and we have something about runoff comes down through here. And when the surveyor comes in, he'll be able to tell you better, but this all goes naturally down for water runoff and leaching and things like that.
Have you guys got a septic plan yet?
Not yet.
I didn't believe I saw one.
Not yet, but it's gonna be huge.
Oh, I just looked up permitted uses and you're okay in terms of campgrounds, okay in most districts. It's got to be the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing, have you run this by the Saco River Conservation?
They're next.
They're next.
They don't meet in December, so
Okay.
we have to wait till January to
Okay,
talk to
because that's
them.
also
Yeah.
consideration.
We figure if we can follow all their rules, it'll help us meet all the rules here in town as well. For setbacks, I mean.
I'm
and-
wise to do it the way you're doing it because, there's often a lot of glitches and problems, so.
Yeah,
So 3,500 square feet or 2,400 square feet is enough for an RV that tows in a vehicle?
yeah, oh yeah. They're usually 500 to 1,000 square feet, but we want trees in between every site and in the back of every
Privacy,
site.
So you are thinking like green space in between the...
Oh, yeah.
So
We,
I would recommend you show that on your,
okay,
you had your surveyor draw that in, shrubbery, things like that, because we need to know that.
sure.
And it makes this,
These sites are unpaved.
Unpaved,
Right. And the access road, will that be paved or not?
Gravel.
gravel.
It's still impervious once you put gravel and you disturb the ground. So you gotta look at, that's another one there. If you gravel in any driveways, roads, or anything aboard, just remember, that's considered impervious.
Yeah, big cut.
I'm just saying, we just gotta remember that's impervious.
That's why we don't want so many pull-through sites, because it adds an extra road on each side of the campsite, whereas we can subtract a road in between each way and have green space.
and the red line that you have highlighted is your, I'm missing the letter on the key. You said- I see that where your boundary line of your survey premises is all the survey premises your property, or is that what this red line is?
Were you asking there, Stephen?
I'm seeing I'm just looking at the key to see if I can tell if this dash red line is a butter line, red
That's been
line.
setback.
Yes, thank you.
This is part of a setback, and then we got the flood lines that come through here.
Okay.
From FEMA. I think there's two separate lines. There's setback, and then there's flood
Yep.
lines,
And the black
floodplains.
zone.
High point.
Yes, yes.
And that needs to be marked on here and defined better, which I have a lot of questions, Stephen, whenever you guys are ready.
Please go ahead, mine are,
I have a lot of questions. But I'm concerned about the application and everything else in this drawing. There's 3 different districts on this drawing. Has anyone picked up on that yet besides myself? This is just not one district.
No, yes.
It's 3. So you got to look at 3 different areas of our book to define what's got to be done in each district. One is farm and forest, one is rural residential, and then all across the front is shoreline.
Yep.
So there's a lot that's got to be done here, a lot of studying, a lot of time and effort by this board to make sure that we get everything that's in our guidelines done properly, like Andy brought up before, and we don't make any mistakes. In order to do that, Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend to the board that we seek advice and help from Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission. These are the experts on the large projects that can really help us define this. In order to do that, though, we gotta see if we got money in the budget, so we gotta ask Desiree to look at our budget and advise us, is there dollars in there that we can use to seek their help?
David just reminded us that we have the avenue of asking for an escrow account so that the applicants can pay for the consultants.
Oh, they can pay for our consultants, then.
Yes.
Okay, all right. But I'm recommending that to our board, that's one of the first things that we do, is to seek their advice on a plan that's a little better than this. Let me ask you, Mr. let's see, what is his-
You just call me Andy.
Yeah, Andy, this drawing you give us,
Yes.
is this off of a bigger drawing, or is this the exact same scale that the surveyor gave you?
That's what the surveyor gave us.
So this scale on the bottom down here, we can use on this drawing. Because most of the times, the drawing's bigger than what we have here. There's a scale on the bottom. On the bottom right is a scale.
1 inch is 150 feet.
1 inch is equal to 150 feet.
Doesn't seem like it's the scale of these.
No, it don't.
I don't think it is. I think we shrank it down.
This is what he sent us.
We need
And we
a
print.
scale drawing.
Right.
That we can use.
When we get the other,
This is just for review for now.
yeah, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just,
So we can't use that scale on this drawing, is what I'm saying.
correct.
Is the yellow line the normal height or the 100-year mark? The flood line?
Which one is that?
The ATV trail.
That's some sort of trail.
That's the ATV trail.
Running through the-
That's the 18.
It's all part, yeah, it's all part of the
It's gotta be
ATV
all-
trail
This
organization.
is the river here. It's gotta be all.
Do you know what kind of trail it is? I'm just looking ahead.
Snowmobile, I believe, is what goes
Allow
through there.
access? I mean, it's something you need to think about. Would you allow people access across the property?
We've actually been in constant contact with the snowmobile club up here, and even when we posted the land, because we knew people were gonna be walking it, so we wanted to make it safe, I told them that that doesn't apply to them, they can use it. Worst case scenario, we may have to reroute them around some infrastructure, but we wanna keep that trail open, and we would like to actually open the park up to the ATV trail that's right next door as well, right on the property line,
My
so,
understanding that ATV trail is very busy.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
that recreational area you have down here, the big large one,
Yeah.
that may be in the flood zone.
Yeah.
Just by looking at this, that may be, so that's something of that nature, if we don't have a scale, we can't really tell.
Right.
So
I
that's what
think
I'm
he-
concerned about.
he-
And then you only got one road in, one road out right now for this large of a site.
Again, this is,
You're gonna have to address that somehow.
yeah, this is a partial plan. This isn't the final plan.
I'm just, things that I'm looking at,
Yeah.
there's a lot. I'm really concerned
We want
about
to
the
give you as
amount
much
of work.
information so you're not back here over and over again.
Yeah. And we,
Surveying is not cheap, so.
when we get the surveyor to
Great
complete
services.
Yeah.
this the way that we actually agreed to have it completed, not the way that it's done now, the surveyor will actually come and meet with you as well and can answer every question.
It might be helpful if we could sort of define what we think some of the issues are, you know, without making them hard and fast.
That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I know he built this off of the FEMA maps that have yet to be approved,
Yes.
but that they've been out there for a couple of years, and
And DEP's gonna have to be involved in this too, not just the court. Saco River, DEP, EPA may become part of this, because there's, this is a 110-acre site we're dealing with. And what they're trying to do, I think is wonderful for the community, but if we don't do it and do it right, then, like Amy brought up on her other project, somebody be throwing stones at us for not following up on detail, and making sure it's
You're not
not
burning
by
money
book.
interest, and we're gonna get a lot.
We don't need that.
Yeah, no, and that's fine.
To be
That's why we're
expected.
bringing in the surveyor, the engineer, all
We
of
want to
that.
follow the rules, we
Yeah.
just need to know what they are.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, then their application is very incomplete.
Yep.
I have to bring that up. The application we can't accept as what you've given us as complete. It's so vague, everything you hear us bringing up, you need to have someone work with you and give us more detailed information all the way from A to Y on our request. There's too many NAs, not applicable on who did all this, engineer, but there's things that can be done on your initial application that's not done with your right now. So we cannot accept this application. In my mind, I'm just one voting member, as it's submitted now.
We knew that it was going to get rejected. We were told it was going to get rejected.
Conversation.
I think we're here for a courtesy visit and a conversation.
Yes.
Let me share with you one of my concerns right off the bat, and it's not, a deal breaker, but it will probably have to be addressed, is the amount of traffic this is going to generate. That's kind of why I asked you if it's going to be people who are going to sit tight, but I think there's 1,800 people in the town, okay? We're talking about 193 sites.
Over 10%.
Conceivably, with 2 people on each, that doubles the population of the town. Okay, given you might not reach that level, or you won't reach it all the time, but it's going to be a concern. And I don't know exactly, you don't have a driveway. Did you get a driveway permit? Is that
Probably not yet.
Not yet,
Yeah,
but there is a driveway there.
yeah, I know where it is.
But it's going to have to be permitted too now.
Yep.
When you guys go in depth from A through Y, you'll see things like signage, all that little detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the surveyor is accurately depicting your spots, it'll show shrubbery, all that, all the kind of stuff, what you're leaving, what you're clearing,
Surface water flow.
surface water flow.
Water flow, surface water, show which way that flows to.
Yeah.
None of this
Design of the
is
buildings that
wrong.
you're putting out.
There's some of it on there, but it's not
Yeah, I see
complete.
some, I see some.
I heard
Yeah.
a brief discussion about septic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going full septic lots, like each lot has its own pipe, or are you doing just the one dump station?
No, there'll be plumbing to the sites as
To
well.
every site, so there'll be full
Yeah.
hookups?
Oh, wow.
I don't know if there'll be waste at every site, but there'll be water coming into every site, and electric coming into every site, and cable coming into every site.
But
I've been
then,
RV camping since I was born, so I'm very familiar with campgrounds and how they're set up, and
We need to pick his brain.
And so, the first thing that, when I look up campgrounds in our book, the first thing that most of it says is that we follow state standards.
Right.
And so, one of the first questions I had was lot size, because obviously you can't tell. State standard is 1,000 feet per site. You guys are
Way over.
24 to 3,500, I heard you say, so perfect. The next one that comes up in our book is 5,000 square feet of land, not including roads, driveways, for each site. Land supporting wetland vegetation, land below the normal high water line is not included. So 193 sites, you gotta have 965,000 square feet of land, not including driveways or buildings. So-
Like they got it, depending on how, how it's got to be configured in a certain way.
It just has to be, according to the book, that was the entirety of the statement, so so according to that, it's, 965,000 square feet of land. And so, and that's not just within the park, right, that's the entire lot. So don't read that as you need 5,000 square feet per site.
Okay.
In each site, that would be an absolutely enormous RV site.
That's actually what we were shooting for at the beginning, but the surveyor shot it down.
Yeah.
We wanted big sites.
up there. The next one of concern that I saw was where the high water line is. So you have to have 75 feet of horizontal distance from the normal high water line.
Yep.
So most of your sites, I figure are fine. It's kind of the 2 rows of back ends that are at the back of the park towards the river that, are probably the ones that I would be concerned.
What's that right there?
They're probably your premium dollar sites.
Yeah, and the surveyor stated that those were outside the 75-foot.
But he put them on there for you anyway?
Yeah. No, they were within the 75-foot. There was 75 feet between those sites and the river, according to him.
So it's not of the river, it's of the high
Okay.
water line.
Yep, and that's the blue line, right?
That's the shoreline district line, I don't know if they're one and the same.
All right.
In this area, it can be different, but yeah, so that's why that line is important to see on any map that we get. Yeah, the sewage disposal was one, for sewer hookups, you need 75 GPD.
Gallons per something.
Yeah. I figured that part. You
Yeah.
get the D though.
The dollar disbursement?
Something like that. So yeah, obviously, some type of septic, and then you got a place for that all to go, right? So
Yeah.
that's gonna be important for us to see. The next one is, in the state regulations around bathrooms and showers. And we saw the one little bathhouse by the pool. So based on the number of lots, in the way I was reading it, you're gonna need 5 men's toilets, 6 women's toilets, 2 urinals, 3 men's showers, and 3 women's showers. So I'm guessing that we haven't gotten that far in the process to figure out that that needs to be that big. And again, those can be spread over multiple buildings, so you could put a building elsewhere on your property to satisfy those needs, but, so those regulations, that was one that stuck out to me, given. the
Whose
size of
regulation is
building.
that?
What's that?
Whose regulation is that?
That's a state.
That's a state one.
It's under the.
So even though they have RVs, we have to accommodate bathrooms for them?
Too.
Even though the RVs have
I
bathrooms?
registered that in my deal. Just because I assumed that there was some leniency there, right, because they're mostly self-contained.
Right.
The other thing, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, that's, yeah, rules related to campgrounds from DHHS.
I know there's a dump station. I don't think there's septic coming out of every lot.
That makes more sense.
And what's not on there is there are going to be well pumps as well to carry water from the wells that we have to all of the sites. And those haven't made it on the plan.
But you won't have a faucet or a pipe at each site then, for water, for fresh water?
There'll be a pipe for fresh water. at
There
every
will
site.
be for each
Yes.
site?
Yep.
Okay.
So why would you need a carry station for water?
Because if it has to go uphill, it can't be gravity fed, so we'll have to have a pump station that can bring
Yeah,
the water out.
There's standards on the pressures, there's,
Yeah.
yeah, there's all that. The electric plan.
I get that, but if they're all up to code and there's
Yes.
a spec at every site, you wouldn't need to have a carry on site, because you'd still have it there.
Well, because you could still have, if you have a tent, you know,
Yeah, but you're only doing RV, right?
And every site's going to have its own panel
Yep.
for electrical and its own breakers.
Yep.
The individual breaker for every site.
Yep. And they'll all have 30 and 50.
Yep, 30 and 50 standard.
Yep.
Back to the septic question, are you anticipating your units to use honey pots? Because if you have somebody staying there for more than a week, are you expecting them to move their RV out, go dump, and then go back into their site? Or use honey pots and transport the honey pots to the dump site?
That's a great question.
no, if they're doing full hookups with septic at each site, they wouldn't need to do that.
But they're not sure if they're doing septic.
He's not sure.
No, it's not confirmed.
Okay.
I thought we were, but
Yeah, that was
it
the plan.
seems strange because you would have to put all of that underground.
Yes.
It's all, everything
Yeah,
will be torn
and
up.
those are big pipes that are coming out from the RV for
We'll have to
septic.
explore that.
We'll have to
An
talk
engineer.
a little bit more about
Yeah.
that, yeah.
It's not super appealing to your clients if they have to use cooking pots.
Yeah.
Especially in a campground, if they use cooking pots.
Correct. Yeah.
It's the number one complaint I hear about, which I don't complain about. but they have to-
I don't want to smell
I
it,
get
so.
that.
And Andrew, in this 29 site, is that a water, that looks like water going through there, and it looks like it's a low level? like
It's,
lower
yeah,
ground?
this kind of folds in on itself.
Can you guys
and I
speak
think
up
he
so
was
we all
thinking
understand
there was
what's
some
going
sort of
on?
Yo. Going through there?
I believe there's a very small seasonal.
That might
He
be
was asking if
the
this
zoning board.
was, there was water there. He's
Yeah.
Good enough, thank you.
I'm looking at your contour,
We got talking.
your contour level?
Yeah.
Contour, it looks pretty steep through here, is that correct?
Yes, right
All
here,
right,
but
and then it levels out.
it's pyramid step through there.
So one of the things we're gonna need regardless, but it's just concerned to me, is site, surface water move.
Yeah.
How surface water is gonna be dispersed across the site.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't look like you're doing any clearing on the steepest part. Is it?
We're going to try to do as little clearing as possible. We want people to have privacy in each of these lots as much as possible. We don't want to go in there and rip everything down. We want to put as little pavement as possible in the place. We'd like to keep it looking as natural as possible. We live over in East Wakefield, and we're on 20 acres, and I like having trees between me and neighbors, so I figure everybody else must too.
Do you know what the total acreage is for the sites versus the total acreage for the whole lot?
Well, I do know that this triangle across the street is about .6 acres. The rest of this site, except for the 20 acres in the back, cut off by that red line, is going to be designated for the campground. Whether the land is used or not. I mean, walking paths, things like that.
You know, it's 110 acres here. I mean, we're reading
Yeah, the
this.
scale's way off.
It's huge.
Our deed says 106, but
106, I read something for 110.
I read 104. Give or take.
it might be 104 with the 2 acres that got cut off. That is still part of the property. It hasn't been deeded or anything yet. We just don't know what we're going to do with that. We may need a second area where people can pull out. So we just kind of have standing pat on that lot till we figure out what our needs are. And
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chairman? Please. I'm curious if the town has a precedence of something this large. Do we have any other anything precedent, previous businesses of this large scale? Something does the town have anything in place already that we've approved in the past that's this large? Where it has nearly a 10%
Other than the
population of that?
subdivision, which this has got nothing to do with the subdivision, which is totally different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of precedent for large acreage in general? Is that what you're asking?
A large commercial site plan or proposed that we approved that had to do with so many people coming into an area like that.
Well, that's one of the concerns that's sort of stipulated, traffic.
Yeah, emergency services, access, right?
Well,
That's why we need that association to help us. They're experts at this.
I agree with you on that, but I think before we go to them, we should formulate our own set of questions.
Oh, yeah.
That we,
I agree with you, Andy. But, but in order for us to make a good, sound decision, we need to have a discussion with them eventually.
I mean, this is a permitted use in a
Yeah.
permitted district,
All 3 districts?
Well, the shoreline,
Right, shoreline.
It is really, but it's vague.
Okay. But as far as farm and forest district and the rural residential, they qualify
it
within.
requires a site plan review.
Yes.
So it's an allowed use, so we got to proceed with the application.
Yep.
This was sent out to abutters, right?
Yes,
Yes.
for the November meeting.
Did anybody show up?
Yes, but of course, we didn't have the
It wasn't
applicants, so we
repeated.
told them that we would have the meeting December 21st. What I figured, or what I planned to ask you, was that once we started getting into this more, send out abutters notices again to let them know that, okay, we have an actual complete application, and we're gonna start digging into this.
Paul, I mean, what's your question tending towards?
For instance, when I had to, in the past, like with a camper application, permit application, or a campground application, they look for precedents to see if we'd done something like that before in that area, or that size, or that type of stuff. So that's what I was asking about, if we had approved a campground in our town yet.
I don't think there is one.
Okay, because I'm still new to
Nothing
that.
that size.
Okay, so we have no precedents for this thing that size.
We're going to be setting precedents for
Right, that's kind of why we need to tiptoe then.
Yeah.
Right. A second query?
Please.
there is a monument on the property. Is that a ancient or significant or historical society value that needs to be known or?
That's a monument marker for a boundary.
Oh, that is a boundary.
That's a boundary marker.
Okay.
And it's right, if you ever want to take a look at it, it's right over where the RV trail butts up against our land.
Okay. So
It's right there, you can.
Not a historical
right at-
monument, it's a boundary
No.
monument.
Yep.
Okay.
We stumbled across it walking the land, and we asked about it.
I think if your new surveyor or your current one, whichever one you work out, put some, obviously, scale to this drawing.
Yes.
And also some more clear markings on a lot of the lines he has, that's gonna clarify a lot of questions and save you some frustration.
And it needs to be rejigged, and we don't actually know how many sites we're gonna be able to put in, and that's really gonna depend on what the earth tells us we can do first. And second, what the ratios are between development and keeping.
Especially in shoreland.
Yeah.
You're really gonna, that frontage where shoreland's at, the ground is gonna tell you a lot. And so
Yeah.
he'll get involved, he'll get involved in that.
That's what I was trying to, when I was talking with Jesse, that's what I was telling him, we can put these sites on paper, but once we get out there, if the earth says there's no site going here, we skip it and go to the next one. Or maybe 3 sites, maybe there's an area that we didn't think we could put a site that we can put a site, so it's kind of malleable.
So if I'm
But,
reading this correctly also, there's only 6 sites in your recreation area in shoreline.
More than that.
Am I looking at the wrong line?
Shoreland.
So shoreline comes from the right-hand side to the
Yeah.
bottom. None of these backend sites along that line, the 22 sites are in shoreline.
There's just about 4 or 5 of them, that just barely puts up to that line.
Gets close to the line.
Yeah, really close.
And this
yeah.
has an alternate avenue, if you get into a nightmare.
And I think that's the 75 feet to the shoreline from the other one.
Does anybody know what this property was originally divided as? Was it just real property? Was it a property with some other use, prior use, designated prior use? I've been advised maybe it was. Do you know if this was ever designated as a subdivision? Do you know that?
I know that what they did was they got 2 building lots put on this site. And they're both within that 20-acre cutoff that we did for our house. So technically, that would be subdivided because there's 2.
A subdivision?
Yes, there were 2 lots, and then the rest of it was,
Oh, that throws a big monkey wrench into it.
why is that?
Subdivisions have their own detailed requirements.
I'm not sure if it was subdivided, but I consider it as...
We need to find that out.
Yeah, I consider it a subdivision because there were 3 separate proposed. I don't know if it ever went all the way, but the proposal was 2 house lots down in that 20-acre area, and then the rest of it was going to be something else or what have you.
We'll have to make sure, Mr. Chairman, about that, because when you look at subdivision guidelines, it requires quite a bit. I did look at that some with the roads and the radiuses and the intersections. It's quite a little more stringent than what we're talking right now.
I had this same kind of tendency to look at this as a subdivision, but I don't believe it is.
I hope it's not.
I saw it as a major
I
subdivision.
hope it's not.
By definition, it's a major subdivision.
But we don't know.
I think a subdivision involves that the lots are owned by different people. Like you take a piece of land and chop it up like lots and woods, then that each subdivision is a separate entity. This is one entity.
But originally, it could have been subdivided as a subdivision owned by one entity. And then from that one entity, that's like a developer. That one entity is the developer, then he subdivides it by lots, and he sells it off by lots. But originally, it could have been one owner owned all of this as a subdivision, is what I was saying. That's the only way it can be done as a subdivision. Well, it's never been developed past that point.
Right.
It never has.
Maybe we need to do some research.
We just gotta make sure that we don't get caught in that dilemma. The board, we gotta make sure.
I don't think we have any, I mean, if it was a subdivision, we could work with density, but in this case, I don't think we have any oversee over density, it's the state rules.
Right.
Unless we have specific concerns related to our ordinance that would lend us to, address the density. So, yeah, I don't see this as a sub, like Alan says, but I don't see it as a subdivision.
I hope not.
I did not, in my reading, see it as a subdivision.
I didn't read any place yet either.
So
But-
you don't consider it a subdivision, so you're not concerned with the net residential density, right?
No.
Net residential density, not concerned because it's not subdivision.
Because it's not a subdivision.
It would be
It's not
considered a
private
campground
lands.
under state campground.
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
just marked as a district, it's laid out on map as a district. That's all it's done, as a district like that. Rural residential,
Yep.
that's like Shoreland's been laid out like that. All of our properties laid out in districts.
So I've been researching a similar project,
Yeah.
but not an RV project.
Right.
Just for campgrounds,
Yeah.
and I was told that they are not considered subdivisions because they're not privately owned lots.
Right.
Just for you guys, this is just a thought. If you get people moving in there and staying there all year round, then they might become residents. Then you might have a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but there's something.
Is this a seasonal campground?
Seasonal, yes. 6
Yeah.
months, they gotta get out in October.
Anymore, the way the world is now, man, you got people living in motels,
Yeah.
living in their cars,
Yeah.
so you gotta be careful they don't glom onto this and, move in on it.
Well, we figured we'd probably have to engage the police department and work something out with them so that if something like that happens, the sheriff or whoever can come down and remove.
Generally, good luck. I mean, as you know, no, I don't mean it that way. As you know, you have an RV park in Wakefield. That's
Yeah.
on the opposite side of Providence Lake.
Yep.
They have no problem. When they close their gates, they're done.
Yeah.
You have to monitor just to make sure that people aren't in there stealing their gas or breaking into their campers on something.
Exactly. Well, that's why we want to build our home there, so
I
that we're
can't
there.
imagine a tenant, thankfully, it hasn't happened to me yet,
Trying to-
deciding to camp out for the winter because they're not very comfortable. And that's something else you may want to mark on here. I'm assuming you're going to have gated access at some point,
Yeah.
so that people cannot get in and out. How often nice RV to live in?
We will be asking for a gate too that we can close in the winter. A real gate, not like a chain. But we do want to, no matter what happens, we want to keep the snowmobile club able to use it because we understand how important that is to the town during the winter and the local businesses. And they're not hurting us, so it doesn't bother us. We just may have to reroute them, like I said.
Alan?
I have a motion, whenever you're ready. I would like to make a motion that Parsonsville Planning Board contacts and works with Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission after we receive all their documents to allow us to discuss it with them. But I think I'd like to have that on record if at all possible. And that's my motion at this time.
Okay, got a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
What are we thinking for an escrow account?
You what's that?
What are we thinking for an escrow account?
Oh, geez.
We have a magically in the corner that's going to tell us how much money we're It's not our fault.
I'm gonna read to you from the ordinance in just a second.
Okay.
All right, so it's page 96 of the ordinance, professional services. The planning board may require that a consultant or other appropriate professional advisor review one or more aspects of an application for compliance or non-compliance with this ordinance and to assist the board. The consultant or other advisor shall first estimate the cost of the review, and the applicant shall deposit with the town the full estimated cost, which the town shall place in an escrow account. The town shall pay the consultant or advisors from the escrow account and reimburse the applicant if funds remain after payment. So,
We don't know.
once we get their application, send it to Southern Maine Planning, see how much they would estimate to work with us, ask them for the funds, then pay Southern Maine to work with you.
Right.
Okay. That's
So we have
acceptable
to approve the
to
application
us, by the
first.
way.
What's
That's-
typical, that's what they have, just so they know.
This size, geez.
It changes. I've had anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, so it all depends on,
I was thinking it's probably going to be closer to 10.
At least, I was gonna say
Right.
another 15,000.
Let's say 20.
That's reasonable.
Why not?
so the other thing to think of is there any other independent peer review that you're going to want to look into for this? So is there anybody else that you're going to want to reach out to, you know, DEP, Saco River, you know, is there anybody else that you're going to want to review this application again in the future? Just something
Oh, sure.
to keep in the back of your mind.
Saco River, they shouldn't cost us anything for them to do the review.
No, I threw them out there as a, for instance, but if there's any other engineering, surveying, anything like that, that you think you're gonna want a second opinion, just keep that in mind.
To table that for a minute until we see the completed application, you know, because they may fill in a lot of stuff we think we don't have now.
Right.
Agreed. I think they may end up seeking some of those services on their own to.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to bring in somebody to do a wetland and vernal pool study, that type of stuff, make sure there aren't any extinct frogs or salamanders or whatever it is, right? And we're going to need an engineer to come in and levels of the road and the buildings and all the rest of that, and that's going to be the biggest expense. And then the surveyor and DEP is going to have to get involved at some point, Saco River Corridor, whomever. There's going to be a lot of moving parts.
Maybe
but-
EPA too, the state
Yeah.
EPA maybe. So you're looking at at least three separate entities.
Yep.
Plus the septic.
Yeah. DEP does septic, they handle all that.
Hire the right person to take care of it for you.
Yes. Yes.
Know their stuff.
Planning board members, do any of you know whether for emergency vehicles with that many
That's
sites,
gotta be on there too.
will a road need to be put in place?
Yeah, it can be an existing,
Right
it
now,
can be
we have a
gravel,
proposed
it don't
drive.
have to be paved or nothing. It can be just stone, but it has to be shown on the drawing how big of an area to accept for a turnaround. It's called a turnaround.
Okay.
For those vehicles.
But not necessarily a road?
No, it's a road, it is, it isn't.
Good enough for it.
It
Okay.
doesn't have to circle the whole thing.
They don't have to circle the whole
Just have
town.
to have access to.
But they do anyway.
Okay, so
We're
emergency
gonna
vehicles
anyway.
of that size, that number of people, that size, they only need the one way in and one way out?
Yeah, or we'll ask, Southern Maine will advise us on that.
They will, okay,
And
okay.
they're really good at that.
Okay, they know the emergency.
Oh, they've got all the people that understand all that.
I mean, the road has to be big enough for two RVs to pass each other on the road.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so it
It's
would be
certainly
a
big
road
enough
for, are you saying a named road that the town would then name, or are you saying a drive?
well, like an access road to the
Access
English Park.
okay.
Yeah, just an access.
Yeah, because I mean, that sort of situation is gonna happen way more than an ambulance going down there, right? Is one RV leaving, another one coming in.
Yeah.
So they have to have quite a wide access into the campground
Right.
for those two things to happen at the same time.
Gotcha.
But if it'd been a subdivision, then you were right. It's much more detailed
Right.
than this. If it was an actual subdivision.
Okay.
It's going to be fun, isn't it?
The only other thing we got in this town is an informal collection of campers and huts of various sizes and builds along the river on, right off where the solar project is going to go. All in there, and they're just flopped in there anyway. And there's no standard, so I mean, you know, you guys are already ahead of the game. Far as
Sure, I agree. So should we make a motion to find this application?
I was going to bring that up. I'm ready to make another motion.
Wait,
So
or should we table the application?
well, that's what I was gonna say, because if you make it incomplete, the clock is still ticking on how quickly you have to approve or deny it. Where if you table it, there's more room to work with.
To me, I don't want to take it. I want to tell them they got to redo it in detail.
Well,
That's just me.
Right, but if you say it's incomplete,
It is.
you still have, you have to act on it within so many days, and you have to approve or deny it. Where if you table it, knowing that they know that they have to fix it, that gives them more time to get a new surveyor, get all the plans together, and it doesn't restrain you guys as much.
And we're actually, I have another blank one that we're actually going to hand to the surveyor and make him fill out.
So we would table it and visit with him again
Yeah.
before we make.
Right,
We can always deny it at a later point.
Or if he's gonna submit a brand-new application, just deny it on the grounds that he's gonna submit a new application. You know, you have a couple different ways to go here.
They came back saying they knew it was incomplete, they wanted to have an informal visit,
Yep.
they're frank with us, you know, they gave us what information they got. I think we should table it to give them the leeway to do what they need to do, and give us nothing.
We saved the $175 too.
What?
Well, if we decline it, and then they have to spend an application, they have to do a whole new fee and all that stuff.
We just told him to give us back.
Drop in the bucket, but
So, does anybody have a motion to consider?
Motion to table until further information is available from the client.
second.
All in favor?
Abstain.
And one abstain. Point taken. We appreciate you guys coming in.
We appreciate you guys for listening to us.
We appreciate you guys meeting with us, even though we don't have everything complete and together. And we,
Sometimes it helps to put some groundwork ahead of the time, so we all are on the same page. And
I-
hopefully
Yeah.
we've given you some information to save you some headaches down the road.
Yes.
I feel more comfortable now in moving forward and dumping all the money into it, knowing that
Slow with the money, bro.
it's,
You know, it's not strict.
just knowing that it's feasible to do as long as we meet all the criteria. It is. We figure this is gonna be a couple of years anyway, and about $250,000.
It's probably going to take, just for discussion purposes, it's going to take you 6 to 8 months, or maybe 9 months to just get through the process of the application.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. I mean, you know, you get down right down to it, there's vermin control standards, you know, given the number of sites, you're gonna have, you know, certain control processes in place for mosquitoes to rats to everything.
Yeah, that's scary. That keeps me up at night.
So, a lot of, yeah, you're gonna have to, you know, trash removal.
Yeah, we figured we could ask the town about trash removal and
Yes.
dumpster services and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, those are just the little things.
Yeah.
I have a question to throw out there, I know that we made a vote on their application, but would you be open to submitting this project in phases?
What does that mean?
Meaning, you may propose, you may submit your first phase may be your pavilion, bathrooms, pool, and camp rental, and then your second phase is your first 44 sites. I'm not saying you're
Just for
required to do
approval?
that.
Just for the approval
For
process?
the approval
Yeah,
process.
because
It just
we-
might keep you moving along before you're investing point whatever amount of money into this.
Absolutely.
And you know that you're, because in my personal opinion, there is some room for movement on this drawing if you run into some roadblocks, so you can still achieve your ultimate goal. Now, I might be wrong because we don't really have the best drawing, but that's why
Could you foresee a situation where they did that, and we approved one piece, and they came up against something where we couldn't approve the second?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just out of fairness to them.
with the amount of land they have, no. That was my consideration, is they have a massive amount of land that they're working with.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean,
And we already know it's approved use for this area.
All right, the only thing we don't know, and I want to caution you guys, we don't see the abutters here.
Right.
Okay? And I don't know how aware you are of this. In the past, in this board, abutters have thrown wrenches into stuff. We can't foresee how that's going to play out, or if it will play out, but it has delayed stuff for years on it.
Have you met any of our betters?
That's a good point of view, Andy.
Or gotten any negative feedback?
No.
And you don't have to answer that question, it's important.
No, I don't think we've met
People
anybody.
did show up, right, so.
What meeting?
No, Eastman's, Taylor's, and
Somebody else.
one other person.
There's about 3 people showing up.
Yeah.
You might want to wait until you hear what they got to say, or if they show up again, just so you know,